So this is the advanced characterization or developing advanced characters or characterization workshop for COYOTECON 2025. I am going to pull up a few slides here if I can find them, because that's always important. And I do have pretty terrible allergies right now, so I will just apologize right now, because I'm supposed to be doing vocal things and it's hard. So while I'm trying to pull up the resource that I need here, why don't you all introduce yourselves? I know all of you, but none of you know each other. So take a moment and share, because now all of you except for Kaylee has been in one of my classes. Even Aaron. I'm
gonna be in the next semester.
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday.
Yeah.
So share about yourselves to each other. And let's see, I had there they go. So let's just make it fun here. So you can roll one of these dice to decide what you share about yourself. One way to, and this is a strategy for getting deeper characters, is you use kind of the normal get to know you type activities. And so do this for yourself, but also think, if I'm developing a character, how would I answer this question?
Oh, okay, there. Okay. My name is Dakota. So I went into it, I got named the time when we were scared. It was on a really massive roller coaster that my father pushed me into doing. And that was terrifying. What is the most important thing? I want to be a 21st century person and save my cell phone. Both my cell phone. If not my books. What about your freedom? He just got his. I saw that. Congratulations. Right, get a citizen now. My books. That would be it.
Let's see if let me do this right.
Okay. I should turn the other one off and easier.
Is this your recently deceased?
It is. It is. It's really nice. Thank you. Which one is your birthday? My birthday is August 21st, 2007. Anyway, name something you want to buy. Everything. I'm gonna marry someone rich.
Wow.
Yes. I don't like any athletes. I don't like sports. I'm just gonna do it. Yeah. Name a time when you were sad.
That is sad. That is sad.
That would do
Cried
that.
for a week. What game do you like to play? I played Royal High on Roblox a lot.
That's valid. He likes to play Ring Around Rosie. Hey! You messed it up.
Hey, I'm still gonna take. What game do you like? Right now, mainly Roblox.
Emotional games.
Roblox.
I should have said Breath of the Wild.
That's it.
I haven't played the second.
I'm a victim of child therapy.
I
have
You only went
I was on shopping cart. I had like 8 lists of things I want to buy, but have no money to.
the underlayer. There's like a top layer, and then there's the world. Yes. I'm not.
Because Gavin's not coming.
Yeah, there's tiers. There's like the cloud, and
Like
then there's
Minecraft?
the world, and then there's underneath. Yeah.
Just started rolling. No, it was.
Name a time when Name a time when you're sad.
When you found who you wanted. Wow.
Yeah, it was from Malaysia. It was
I didn't know this lore.
yeah, no, this one. It's called, yeah.
I didn't know you had a relationship with your father.
Yeah.
See,
not in this
these,
class.
using standard get-to-know-you questions is a great way to learn deeper things about the people around you, and a great way to ask questions of your character. So pushing that. Did everybody get to share?
No. Yeah. Greg, you do it.
Me do it?
Yes. Greg time.
All right. Name a time when you were scared. When I was 8, I want to say we used to go be babysat by a family who lived out in the country in Oklahoma, and the older son had problems. He was 11, but at one point he told us to climb a tree, and if we didn't jump out of a limb, off a limb, he said he'd push us. So that was scary. I did jump
Did you break
after
anything?
weighing the options. So there's that. So
Did
there's.
you break anything?
I did not. It was only 15 feet, but when you're 8.
That's
Um,
That's like double your
so-
feet.
Name something you want to buy. Better cameras for the TV.
I sent you so many good ones.
You did, and I just haven't got. I'm not ready to buy them. A new house, no.
Well, that
So-
one's.
Okay, so these are conversation dice, and I do use them in my regular class sometimes, either to just talk about games and ways to make them more interactive, or how to ask meaningful questions, because those are cool. So this workshop is supposed to be at more advanced character development. Questions like these, if you don't have one for your character, they're great ways to get started. What games would your character like to play? Sometimes that develops a game in the world that you're playing. And so that can be meaningful. I will also point to some other strategies. Most of today is going to be focused on character vocalization as a specialized topic in character development. But I will say, there's some other places you can draw on for character development. And where's my little box? So Macy already had one of these, but if anybody wants a set, you can always draw from past mythologies. And so if you want a deck of mythology cards that my students, Casey included, have developed, you're welcome to take a stack of those. If you want story inspiration, that's also why D&D continues to put out materials, so people will have a variety of things they can choose from to develop worlds and characters from. And then this last one I walked by on the way here because I thought, well, that's actually really cool. So there's also, this is the Encyclopedia of Body Adornment. And so it's got everything from jewelry to tattoos to clothing. And if you are curious, I have been doing faculty interviews with specialists to think through how their specialization might play into world building or character development. And so we talked about, and so along these lines, I'm just gonna hold this up to the camera. So along these lines, we talked about beautification techniques that were found in history with our forensic anthropology professors. And everything from some cultures sharpening teeth, women sharpening their teeth to show beauty as an aesthetic to indicate beauty, you would file your teeth into points. Or young children, when their skulls were still malleable, they would wrap them so that they get this elongated look. So the cultural things that people do and the why of those become really interesting. So you can take from history, you can take from anthropology. We in one of our interviews with astronomy talked about how wormholes might play into character development, whether it was they become a place for wizards to hide, or where two wormholes might be in a romance, and what characters in a starship-based game might do to encourage or discourage the romance if it meant the end of the universe. And then you get to decide whether it's a toxic relationship or whether it's healthy and the universe is better off for it, right? So those are fun things. But I just happened to walk past the book on the Encyclopedia on Body Adornment and thought, that's another way, right? So whether your character has piercings, whether they have tattoos, whether they have some sort of accoutrement or artifact, those are advanced things. But that was just a fun find. So I will take from all kinds of sources. You could get a sassy fire elemental type character, a genasi, a sassy genasi, who is fire based, and maybe half fire genasi, half dragonborn, and you'd end up with a version of Charmeleon from Pokemon, right? And so you can think about like the things that might inspire you from all the different sources of input you have. And so that's why a lot of stories will have, movies will have that the characters in this, any likeness to real or otherwise is not that it's not a thing. I can't remember the full statement apparently, but you get the idea. Okay, so what are some, before I jump into my spiel or dig into some of these more advanced things, what are some of the inspirations you found in the past or you might use for future characters? Something, what's the, like if you're thinking more obscure references?
Say that again.
What are some possibly obscure references to pop culture that you might use or otherwise that you might use to develop characters?
So
I brought my sister and her friend.
maybe if you have a bard, you can have.
So which one's the sister and which one's the friend?
Sister.
Okay, I didn't want to make assumptions. Hi.
Shadow the Hedgehog is the sister.
Yeah.
What? Okay, while they're thinking, what are your names? Tao? Sonia and Tao? Okay. She just says my sister all the time. She never actually says your name, so thank you. And, okay, cool.
Or Shadow the Hedgehog.
So we're talking about advanced character development, and so we were saying some of the general ways people can do that for those who just showed up. We talked about things like body adornment, everything from tattoos and piercings and clothing and other artifacts, necklaces, jewelry. We also talked about how you can draw sources from everywhere. So what are some of the places that might influence a character or might give you an idea or yeah.
Maybe if they're a bard, they can have like an interesting taste in music based on where they came from.
Okay, so regional musicals, so anything connected to culture can influence. Also,
Doesn't have to be
like,
tavern music. It can be
what-
like screamo.
yeah, it could be like your bard is not like a traditional minstrel songs, kind of thing, like as we imagine them.
I have a dance bard.
Yeah, that's cool. Like dance, interpretive dance, great option. You could also buy a musical instrument. Do you want people to introduce themselves too? Because you say your name. All right, introductions one more time.
No, you don't. What are you, liar?
But Sonia doesn't.
That's true.
Hi, Sonia.
Well, I pointed and I went, that's Kaylee, and I think that's Gabe.
Yes.
Are you the rock climber friend?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm the top.
You're bad.
Yeah.
This is for job.
Wonderful.
That's true.
I know what
Girls gotta eat, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just mac and cheese.
Me.
Inside joke, internet. So, that was Dakota. Okay, so with that, sign-in sheets there if you're gonna hang out. So if you're doing this for an honors project, we're live streaming, so you can always send the live stream to show that you've been here the whole time. It's also recommended you take notes if it's for an honors project. And I'll send a link to the live stream that you can share with your professor as well as any notes. But I think honors project people usually have to do some sort of reflection on that. So I will say I'll front load this. If you're doing this as an honors project, you can think about character development based on historical figures in any discipline. So some of the things we're going to talk about may be a way for you to engage with some of your school content in a different way, to think, how would I make a tabletop gaming character or a story character out of this? And so in our previous workshop, we talked about some of the strategies using like the hat model, which is what are the things I hate, what are the things I adore, who are the people I trust, what do I look like, what do I sound like? And in this one, we're going to really lean into the linguistics side of it and get a crash course in linguistics and think through how that might change how we can use that to characterize differently. But it is going to be a bit more college level with this, so just be aware we're digging deep. But all of these strategies, ultimately, the goal is to better understand how people work and better understand how to personify different types of characters. So with a starting place, anytime we're dealing with linguistics, we want to look at three key pieces. For those of you who don't know, I teach English here on campus, English 101, 102. I teach mythology and I teach technical writing. I also teach at ASU TESOL Method for graduate students. So I teach teachers how to teach speakers of other languages to learn English. So when I'm doing this, I have a specialization in second language acquisition. And sometimes I draw on my theater background to make me more consistent with voice acting type things. So there's a crossover of this arts and
Do you
sciences
speak another
here.
language?
I speak a variety of languages,
What do you
some only a few words. So we can go ni hao, which is Chinese for hi. We can go ohayo gozaimasu, which is Japanese for good morning, which it is not right now. But I learned Spanish at McDonald's and doing construction, and I learned French book learning through school from 6th grade into college.
Say your favorite animal in Spanish.
I can't because I don't know how to say red panda in Spanish.
Red panda.
Okay. So,
Rojo panda.
we want to think about the lens of linguistics as it helps us develop more characters. So if you're considering playing a character and you want their language or language resources to be part of the characterization, you can think about how competent they are with different languages. So in D&D, there's a bunch of languages. There's Draconic, there's Elvish, there's Abyssal if you're trying to talk to demons. There, among other things, there's Dwarvish and all of that fun stuff. Common is the language that is whatever is normal, which is just so that we don't say English, honestly, in most games. But if you are French players and you're in France, then the common is going to be whatever is the language around the table. But if we're looking at, does my character know the common language or the language they're speaking in well? What's their knowledge of language, their competence? How did they acquire it, which can change how they voice it? And then how is knowledge of language put to use, which is, again, how they voice it even more. So if, for instance, I keep going back to my current things right now. So if you were a small child captured by a witch in the woods, Baba Yaga, and Baba Yaga presented to you as a granny lady, and you grew up with this granny lady voice as the primary source of language development, especially for the more advanced vocabulary. Based on scientific studies of linguistics, it would make sense that your voice would texture much like hers. Does that make sense? So you got an old lady who sounds like this and is talking to you about magic and stuff. It would make sense that even if you're a small child, it's possible you would take on the texture, that kind of frogginess of voice that that lady has. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Dakota? Does it bring into perspective Gobby Wobby now? Okay, so for the rest, there's a character I have that's a goblin who's a leader of a village. She's 17. She escaped from Baba Yaga. She spent 10 years in captivity, basically. And she sounds kind of froggy. And they're like, why does this teenager not sound youthful? And it's because the most of her language acquisition was from a wicked witch lady, who likes to eat children, in the swamp, right? That's how we're rolling. That's the some of the origins of Baba Yaga in Slavic mythology. And I'm using some of that to influence. So we can think about these, how did this character gain language? Because it can change the way that they sound in game or the types of accents you choose to use. For instance, if you were someone who in D&D you have a street urchin background, are you likely to have, or what would be an indicator of and we have to be careful here, but because sometimes stereotyping does happen, but sometimes also that's part of the fun of roleplay, for better or worse. So it's kind of we just have to recognize it more than say it's good or bad. So if someone is a poorer income and grew up on the streets, what would you expect to be some features of their language? Is it Tao? Okay, yeah, okay, I said
Her full name's Natalia, but we call
okay. Okay,
Don't call it
T Money, I got you. Tao. I'm sorry, Tao. So what were you gonna say?
Maybe it's not as like sophisticated in speech, maybe like caveman kind of.
Okay, so we might have, so what counts as caveman or unsophisticated?
Like incorrect grammar and stuff.
Okay. So we might leave some words out, maybe, or blend some words together, maybe.
Maybe they'd be like a chimney sweep in the old like kind of racist little movies where they're like, oh me broomstick.
Yeah. So you might have the replacement. They might not use the I and me personal pronouns that in grammar norm according to standard Western English norms. We might hear it as like a Cockney accent or like a country cowboy kind of accent, possibly, where we, ain't no word kind of thing. That there are problematic things with that, but also there's a reason why Cockney and country accents might show up as indicators of lower income, or someone might choose that as a caricaturization too.
Even though that's not necessarily true in real life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's part of it. So in role play, we sometimes will draw on these things, and when we're trying to present characters, we have to be really aware that we make linguistic choices for a reason. And so we can make linguistic choices, and there's a danger in them the same way there's danger in things like blackface as a theatrical thing to have a white actor put on, right? So we want to be aware of those cultural considerations, and also just recognize that sometimes they do signal. One of the and throughout history, they have been ways to play with hegemony or power dynamics in cultures. We even see in the Old Testament, there's a time when these people are running away from the children of Israel, and they use this word, and the children of Israel use this, can you pronounce the word shibboleth a certain way? And if they say sibboleth, they know they're foreign and they kill them. They're technically at war with those people, but if you're doing role play and you're at war and you want to do some characterization, like, that's something that's happened in history. So, for good or bad. So, with that, we want to be aware of how someone, what knowledge of language they have. So, what's their vocabulary, or what's the grammar they have? How did they acquire it? If they have a very tight, limited source, like I said, like Baba Yaga's your language studies lady, because she's teaching you arcane spells and stuff in her granny voice. Well, you're not gonna say it like a Catholic monk would Latin, right? It wouldn't be it wouldn't be Gregorian chant. It would be Baba Yaga's form, because that's where you learned it, right? So one of that is, how did they acquire the language? And then so you can play that into your character role. And then how does that language get performed? Is there some blend of influences that that character makes it their own, or intentionally rebels? So if you escape a bad guy, and do you intentionally rebel and go the opposite, but find a way to still do the powers or abilities that you learned from that person? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Slide 1 complete.
Finally.
Is he gonna roll for me?
No.
Okay.
My grammar
Finally.
includes everything one.
So these are just a few of the branches of linguistics we could look at. I will say there is something to be said for grammar versus grammar norms, and if you've taken my writing classes, you've heard me say that before. Grammar norms are the sociocultural things we say should be happening in language, and the things you get in trouble for when people mark off your quote-unquote grammar and punctuation and you get all the little red marks. Grammar, according to applied linguists, is how you functionally communicate, and they describe rather than say it's right or wrong. So it's that alone, as a linguistic lens for advanced character development and world building, you can make if you're a game master trying to develop systems of communication, you can say, I'm going to make this way of speaking a norm that people will be judged for. And maybe that puts tension between some of the characters and shopkeepers in a game. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is there's grammar, the actual structure of language and everything you know about it, and grammar norms. So, fun. So this game's in college right now. Okay, so thank you for putting up with it, but it is one of the more advanced workshops.
I'm advanced.
You are. So the fast version,
Why
we've
are you
got
laughing?
phonetics and phonology, which are sound-based. Lexicon has to do with vocabulary and like the web of words that connect. Morphology has to do with how words are built, which can be really fun if you're trying to make things up for your character. And then syntax and structure. Semantics has to do, along with lexicon, the meanings of words in context. So you can let it be, semantics might be a way for, if a character makes a history check in D&D and they find out something really meaningful about someone else, about a bad guy. Like everyone else just hears Baba Yaga, nobody knows who it is. And that character knows that she's a creepy lady, right? Who steals children. I'm just using that as the core example because it's one I'm playing right now. You can go watch the stream and see how that plays out if you want.
Shameless plug.
Huh?
Nothing.
Shin split or story? What'd you say?
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. No, the shameless plug is the QR code on the back of these. Which did everybody get? Did you guys hand those out this time?
No.
Really?
No, 'cause I wasn't here.
Gabriel.
That's right, Noella.
Can't believe
Slacker.
it.
No,
What?
you set it up for that. Anyway, see what I did? That is not the way to treat people. So, we can think about where our language comes from and how that interacts with other people because language is both individual and social. Because it's individual and social, we can come up with unique ways our character would say things and also have other characters judge them for it, which can be really fun in game. But if we have, if someone knows more about something, if they get a good history check and they know something more, then now they have that specialized knowledge can influence how they interact with the other players. And so that can be one way that whether you're playing a character or running a game, you can think about. Yeah.
So lexicon is like. So I like to play a lot of dumb characters.
Okay.
So in a lot of interactions, they're like, we have to go to the blah blah blah. I'm like, what's that? Is that lexicon? Like how many words you know and what?
Yeah.
The
So
expanse of your mental dictionary.
yeah. So lexicon might and lexicon that would be part of it. Like if what was I? There was something we were talking about today. If someone goes, I'm going to go get a shot. I'm going to get some shots, right? Lexicon says, and semantics would say the context of that matters. They could mean they're going to Walmart for immunizations, or they could mean they're going to Casey's Oyster Bar, right, or whatever. And so that the term shots, like lexicon determines and context determines whether they mean alcohol or immunizations.
So it's not specifically referring to the expanse of someone's mental dictionary, just more of like the subject.
Both and. Because you can't have specialized lexicon, like a wizard is going to know arcane language more,
Or
but
terms
they,
and phrases.
yeah, they might have more awareness. Or it could be, like I mentioned with the history check, in the Sword Coast in D&D, there's a place called Candlekeep. Who actually knows what Candlekeep is in the room right now? Woody? Noella?
Haha, losers.
Also an example of how not to talk to people, right? See, this is why Noella and I pick on each other, so we don't pick on anybody else.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
So,
Yeah.
Noella, what's Candlekeep?
They're mysteries.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a book called The Candlekeep
Here's the
Mysteries.
book. Uh-huh.
What's Candlekeep?
It's a keep, which is a place, and it has candles in it, I'm sure.
So you heard of the name, and then you called everybody losers because you knew one. Okay, that's like it's.
I could have raised my hand for that.
But you didn't. That's the difference between me and you.
So, specialized knowledge would be the same thing as if I asked you what a quark was, and only one of you was in an astronomy class or something like that,
You
right?
mean a cork,
Yeah.
not a cork?
Yeah, exactly. And that can make, and so lexicon like you just did can be a great place to have fun. Cork versus quark, which one's a physics term and one's the top of a stopper of a bottle. And so you can play, if your character's got a low intelligence or a certain background, you can play on the language as part of the characterization. Are you guys tracking with that?
Yes.
Making sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Noel's not listening, so it doesn't matter if she's tracking or not.
So that might be a special, there might be, lexicon might be based on a specialized language, a particular history check about the world, or it could be, like you said, connected to socioeconomic status. So for the same reason that people who grow up poor might be used to things like Cheez-Its versus, what's a fancy cheese I'm spacing? I grew up poor.
Camembert?
Hmm?
Camembert?
See, you could say that, and I wouldn't know if that's actually an expensive cheese, right?
It's stinky.
Okay, so what's the one that starts with a G? Anyways,
Gouda.
Gruyere.
Yeah, Gruyere. So if someone goes, do you want some Cheez-Its versus do you want some Gruyere? Like, do you want a cheese snack? And one means Cheez-Its and one means Gruyere, right? That changes, that's a lexical thing based on your background. Okay, let's keep going.
Or like, would you like some cheese? And somebody imagines the Velveeta slices, and somebody imagines like a block of cheese.
Exactly. Okay, so actually here, before we jump in further, let's go back. With someone near you, talk about a time when language mattered for a character you were playing, or how you think it could in your own life. So in groups of 2 or 3.
So I did a Boston accent.
True.
It's been left or right. Here when you've had a character that's
You just have to have words that
you have
like you have to say Boston, coffee.
So then how did
I
they?
get my coffee down one up
So like, for me,
and that's how I get into Boston.
And a dummy. Like, they don't know what they're not learners.
I'm always judging her.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
To like
We have-
betray.
I can't help it. Judging is a human thing that happens.
Like, for character, but you saw. Oh, shit.
Whoa. Whoa.
It's a shit.
Something that I say.
That's actually, that would fall under, it would be a little bit, I want to say it's like semantics, but it's also like,
People say those differently.
so then any, anything of that language is someone might say.
Some people use motorway, but I feel like that's more of like a more.
You know,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They think about it, you know.
Yeah.
Going circles using different words.
Without knowing.
Oh, you mean
Like
like,
talking back.
okay, going to
That's interesting.
okay. I thought you meant
Yeah.
you
You end up role playing where that's
Yeah,
or
they
something.
had,
You know,
right, I could like cover their identity.
You just go in circles, but using different words.
That's a really great example.
Would you say freeway, highway, or
Or the,
motorway?
or,
Such a good question.
What?
I say highway or freeway.
I say highway, and Dakota says
Say that again.
freeway.
Okay, so we had a couple good examples. If we're wanting to talk modern language examples, it could be why do we park in a
Park
driveway,
in a car.
but drive on a parkway?
driveway.
We
We
park
might
in a
talk
car
about
park.
the
You park in a driveway.
exactly
I park on the
things like
street.
this.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
might look at
Parents park in the garage.
we might look
And
at
that's
pop
not
versus
scary.
soda versus
Soda pop,
Coke or soda pop. These are all regional dialect things.
soft drink.
So we can play into these kind of features of language as we develop characters. If we're playing modern day role-playing games that might indicate specific locales or regional dialects like that, those can be fun ways to influence the texture and response. We can do the same thing if someone is pretending to not be from the coast but can identify a variety of fish species, right? That can be a way that their character might give themselves away to someone who's interrogating them. So having regional understanding. I do like what Tal shared, and I just spaced, is it Tal and Sonia? That was right? Okay, I'm like, wasn't sure. So I like the example you have. So Tal was designing a world for her players that had the Dragonborn do some terrible things in the past. So all things draconic were outlawed. And 3 of the players, not knowing that, chose to be Dragonborn. And so that automatically sets up this social tension without even trying. So anytime they want to speak amongst themselves, it also means they could use draconic as a secret language, but almost like thieves can't. But it also means that if they did and someone noticed, it could have larger social repercussions. So then how that comes out in the role play could matter.
They like to talk bad about the elephant.
That's funny.
Teeth. Oh my gosh. Those are
So this is where we get into what I think is there's the social side of language, like we think about the word, the webs of words, and we've talked a little bit about that.
like that
So-
little black spot.
Not exactly.
I know.
So when we study linguistics, though, and the crossover with voice acting and character development is what is this part of linguistics is the study of phonetics, which is literally how we form sounds, how sound is transmitted, how is it heard. And so people who study phonetics, like you can be a doctor of just these things, right? The same way, and not even just for like ear, nose, throat doctoring, like infections and stuff, like how do people form words? And so with this, phonetics, studying speech sounds can be a fun way for us to consider what might affect our characters, and also think through how we would hold that accent, hold that voicing. So,
We seen My Fair Lady.
do what?
We seen My Fair Lady.
Yes, it's a great example of this. Who here has seen My Fair Lady?
The play.
Yeah.
Or
the
there's
movie.
it's an old movie too, like a black and white
Well,
movie.
it's about one of the characters is a doctor of phonetics,
I
and
know that.
he teaches a lady from the slums to speak
I took 2 theater
posh.
classes. Actually, shout out.
Well,
Mr.
stop
Joseph.
talking. He teaches a lady of the slums who has a really like rough accent and can't get a job because of it, how to speak posher, so she can get a job as a flower.
Yeah. It is a really great example of social norms embedded in language because she has a Cockney accent and they try and make her high society.
Yeah.
So
and then she stands at a recording machine going,
Yeah. I can't remember if that's the movie that has the "How now, brown cow" kind of thing going on, but that is if you want that
That one's the rain in Spain falls
yes.
mainly in the plain.
So there are things you can do knowing. So one of the reasons it can be good to think about phonetics is if you think about key phrases, catchphrases, think about a really iconic voice that you know, like an actor that has a very that people do impressions of. Mickey Mouse, maybe. Elmo.
Oh,
Who else?
Jennifer Coolidge.
Kermit the Frog.
Yes. Who else? Marge Simpson, definitely vocal fry. What's a character with a really?
Oh, we're talking about vocal fry, then that's not Jennifer Coolidge.
No, she said Marge. Who's a character that you can think of, cartoon or regular person or actor who people regularly imitate because they have a very distinct voice?
Jennifer Coolidge.
What's the King
What is it?
Candy? Is it the Mad Hatter?
Yeah.
You got me glasses, will you? What's
I don't know, but I like where you're going with it.
the Mad Hatter, right? That's King
Lois from
Candy.
Family Guy, yes. Huey. Yeah. Mike Tyson, right? You can almost hear their voices, right? Like some of these people, if you're familiar with them, right? Angie, did you have one? I'm calling on you twice just because
Oh,
you're back there in
Goofy.
the back, so I like to make sure you feel included. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Come with me if you want to leave. I haven't practiced his very much, so I'm sorry that was terrible. But also allergies. But yeah, so we've got things like Elmo, like right?
Want a hot dog real bad.
Kermit the Frog here, right?
Deep throat.
Cookie, right? Like we can, right? We have the Goofy signature laugh. I can't remember it right now. Yeah, that. So you can do some of these things. Do you guys know Sean Connery? He's an older actor, but everybody used to do his voice like the original 007, or close to original.
That's like Sherlock Holmes to me.
Yeah. So you can try and think of the things that make that particular voice unique, and try and use their catchphrases to get your voice into that space. Okay, what does it sound like? Okay.
It was the very first accent I ever learned.
That's good.
Did you randomly start watching her?
Do you know Scottish?
Do I know Scottish, the language? No.
Do you know Scottish, the accent?
Let me think. So that would be like a William Wallace.
Or
So-
like somebody from How to Train Your Dragon, like Burke?
Oh,
Stork the Vast, right? Right. So what I did there is a great way to characterize it, to vocally characterize, right? You get someone's tagline, their key line that they're going to say, and this is a great way to start with your character. So what is a motto, what is a character, a belief, or an introduction that your character is always going to be doing. And so you can use your understanding of phonetics and the palate to anchor that voice. So if Stork the Vast, like if I even from before I pulled that sound a little more forward because I'm trying to project in Greg's. But when you asked me for it, I did it more in the back of my throat where it had a little more echo.
Yeah.
So Stork the Vast, right? It's a little more open that way. So I have to be intentional about getting my mouth into the right position. With Mickey Mouse, it's a little bit harder, but it's definitely going to be in my upper range, and I have to kind of play with, I'm playing with this part of my throat to get the uvula and whatnot up above it, the soft palate, to do that. We can also think about where we place our tongue. So let's do this.
I have an example.
So let's somebody give me just some sort of random phrase. We're all gonna try this. I just need a
Never
random
going to
phrase
give
that
you
is
up,
appropriate
never
on
going to
college.
let you down.
What is it? Never. Are we gonna rickroll in different voices?
Yes, we
All
are.
right. We're gonna say never gonna give you up. Do it in your normal voice. Never gonna give you up.
Never gonna give you up.
Okay. Now what I want you to do is say it while biting your tongue. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna give you up. It's actually really hard to say that phrase with your tongue out in the front.
Never gonna give you up.
Try saying it. Try not to bite your tongue while you do this. Try and say it only pressing your tongue into the lower teeth. Never gonna give you
Never
up.
gonna give you up.
Try and say it where you over accentuate your lips. Never gonna give you up.
Never gonna give you up.
And it can help to kind of do the popping sound first. Try that, everybody. Now try it. Never gonna give you up. Right. So part of it's fun. That's a really hard phrase because so much of it is happening at the back of the voice. But let's do this. So one way to think about it and kind of get your voice warmed up is go make a T and a D sound.
Ta-da.
Ta. This is to develop. Yeah, today is a good one. But do ta, da, and like emphasize them, and just go back and forth for about 10 seconds and feel where those are coming from. Ta, da, ta, da, ta, da. Everybody. Ta,
I think
da,
it's the same
ta,
thing.
da,
No, it's
ta,
not.
da, ta, da, ta, da, ta, da. So the reason this can matter is if you shift all your D's to T's, you can change how something sounds. Which is why tongue twisters like Betty bought some better butter, but she said this butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it'll make my batter bitter. But Betty bought some better butter and
Pick that up, please.
put it in her bitter batter and it made the bitter batter better, right? So that's playing with that sound, the T's and the D's.
Or
When
like,
we are trying
never
to
pick a
vocalize a specific voice, having a catchphrase, being vocally aware to say where am I going to place certain words, we can kind of get our mouth reset, which is also really great for learning new languages, new accents. We get our mouth set to that accent, and then we can say more than just the catchphrase in it, right?
Yeah.
So
Is that a dice tie? That's awesome.
it is. This is my dice tie. Thanks for noticing. We're going till 3. Okay, we're good. So how about this? Everybody go, it's a me, a Mario.
Mario.
Okay. Come on, Noella. You can't be all outgoing in all the other parts and then not the fun parts.
I don't think I'm gonna do
It's a me, a Mario.
Okay, she didn't.
Okay. Now follow that up with, can I have some chicken?
Can I have some chicken?
It's a me, a Mario. Can I have some chicken?
Can I have it? It's a me, Mario. Can I have some chicken?
So are you registering what I'm doing here?
Some chicken.
Now, Mario's voice is extremely, like, problematically stereotypical. But if I'm using it to show you that like you can get into that voice and then stay in that voice to say something else.
Well,
It's me, I'm Mario, and I'd like to go to college, right?
well, if you think about it, that's just what he sounds like, not as
Right.
what people think Italians sound like. There's
Exactly. We don't have to make it awkward.
Yeah.
Are you guys tracking with the principles here? Is it getting a little too silly, or should we make it worse?
We should make it worse. Bruno, I like
here's
to
what I
make
will
Noah
say.
stand up and do it alone.
This workshop also works well for those trying to
Thank you.
run games, and I always try and get people to have a couple different varieties of NPCs, because I say anybody can have like a little kid, a dumb oaf, and a grandma, along with the regular voice. So a little kid just means put everything into like your Mickey Mouse range. So if you go,
And then walking around, guys, and it was really great. And I could even like bounce my shoulders and stuff to add some characterization to this vocalization. And so, do you guys have any candy?
No, I was gonna cry.
so everybody try your little kid voice, put it in Mickey Mouse range. Do it, Sonia. Do it. This is a workshop. It requires participation.
Yes,
I can't wait to have some fun.
And it also, this way you can go Mickey Mouse. You can go L,
Elvis says, clap your hands.
right?
That's a big word for Elmo.
So if you're trying to run games, it can help to have a little kid voice, because little kids automatically make characters like, love or hate them. So players will have immediate responses to little kids in a campaign. Either they will be like, get this kid out of my face right now. And so then it's fun to see how they try and get rid of the kid. Or they'll be like, oh my gosh, let's protect them at all costs, right? And so having a little kid in a campaign can be really good.
I will always say, get this kid out of here.
murder all the children.
No, I don't.
It's like
It's not an uncommon thing around these parts. So they're only goblin children. They don't count. That's what they said. That's what my players said. So look, that's the little kid voice. So let's do the Rick roll in your little kid voice. So go,
Never gonna give you up. Never gonna give you up.
right?
That was just Elmo,
It can
sorry.
be really creepy sometimes too.
I'm never gonna give you up.
I have a doctorate, people. I'm doing this. Don't forget.
Dr.
It's like, I didn't go to Juilliard, so it's not quite as good as the guy who plays, what is it, Ha-Ha? No, that's not right. What's the chicken's name?
Hey,
Moana.
hey.
Hey, It's like, so hey.
Ha
Yeah. He's like, he went to Juilliard. But yeah, so if you ever get nervous or embarrassed while trying to do a voice in a game, just remember, I've got a PhD and I'm doing this.
make sheep noises.
Yeah, go watch my stream. You can see me make sheep noises, among other things. Okay, so we said we want a kid voice. Everybody practiced that. To get the kid voice, we play with the soft palate and the vellum. And we can give it a little bit of a less distinct.
Canada.
We can give it a less distinct to get a little bit more of that, like a floppy tongue kind of action to that. Yeah. And so we can get a little bit of a lisp or a different style of voice if we go from having a high voice, crisp tongue to a high voice, lax, floppy tongue. So try saying never gonna give you up, but like let your tongue flop around loosely more. Right? And we almost get a little more, like I naturally want to go into like almost like Chuck from Rugrats. Yeah. So, all right. So then, how do we get a dumb oath? Actually, first, that's the voice. How would you physicalize that voice? What would you do with your shoulders and arms for the little kid? What's the physicality? Talk with a friend and like decide on an instrument. Talk with someone near you. And if you're an honors student, I'm going to tell your professor that you need to practice these voices for them to show that you were here.
My
Not
honors
really,
teacher is
but
Kendra.
still, it's good to practice. Even better.
Kendra, if you're watching this,
So,
we love
what
you, Kendra.
physicality goes along with the little kid voice that you have?
Just like this. Either or.
What? Like you thinking that
All right, guys. So we have an option here. We could do like some really bashful shoulder floppiness going on. Like what's her name? Is it Heather? No. What's in How to Train Your Dragon? She makes fun of Hiccup and does like the shoulder.
Astrid. Heather. It was Heather. It was totally
So we could do this floppy thing like Astrid does,
I don't
making
know,
fun of
man.
Hiccup.
We could also do.
No.
You didn't like that shift in range, neither do my students.
I know I'm thinking for a little bit, like a sway, kind of like.
Yes.
I like this.
Yeah, that's good. So
And so I'd like to go to the market and buy myself some magic wizards. Mom, can I have some magic wizards?
right.
Yes, you can add some.
So yeah. What else did you guys come up with? You're giving me ideas now. That's a good one.
I like.
Nothing.
All I'm thinking of is a large propeller hat and a little
Okay.
No, you're just holding a lollipop.
So
That's
you
the
could
thing.
give them a lollipop.
Oh, I like candy. And I hope that you save us from the evil goblins. Thank you for taking.
You know, right? Like, and like, if you want, not everybody stands up, but you could do that kind of thing, right? Yeah.
I do this one.
My version of the chat.
Right.
Ew.
You get the kid licking their fingers and then saying,
I see.
right. Yes. This is a classic,
Glad that my mom met you.
right?
Oh. Gabe just does this. Like,
Hello.
That's a really good one. And you say monotone but high pitched. That's great. Macy, would you have?
Gabe, you should do that character from
She was talking about
Goob.
Okay, so
He's not like that.
that is a good point. The content, the content of
Robinson.
that works. It can be like if you've got if you're engaging, like if you want to throw players off and you want to do the little kid, but have them talking about something that's just creepy, like it could be that they're discussing like they're the quest giver and their parents have been like they don't know how to talk about death, so maybe they talk about what the goblins did because they don't know how to say my mom died. It could be that, or it could be like that kid's evil, and like,
That is
and you could lean into the psychopath angle of a kid NPC because
Taken as being a goblin child.
yes, that too.
pretends to be innocent is actually an arsonist.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and so
get it.
that's
It's
these are some different ways you can characterize the kid voice, which is why having a kid voice and being able to just make little differences, like that's why I say if you can have 3 voices and it gives you a lot of range. So having a kid voice is a place to start. The next one is having an old grandpa or granny voice, and like it's not really like true grandpa these days because they all sound very healthy. But what's your grandma voice? Yeah, I like to use. That's really good. So I like to use the dearie, like dearie sweetie, right? And you kind of have that. Do what? Why am I picking on you? I had to make eye contact with someone, and it's hard to make eye contact with Noella for too long sometimes. She also was looking at her toes.
Taking your soul.
He does.
No, I'm kidding. Okay.
No, that's very bright blue.
This is like the 30th time she's got mentioned on any of my live streams. Like, I mentioned Noella more than anyone else. Because almost like I have. It's like any publicity is good publicity. So, all right, so.
You
That's,
sound
my-
like the werewolf narrative. Werewolves, wake up.
that's actually not a bad thing to have, like a deep manly voice or masculine voice, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
Transformers. Right. Avengers.
It's hard to
Assemble.
do that when you're
Right.
not a man. Oh, I'm going to use my credit card. I have no idea.
Oh,
Are you quoting that one word?
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it's good. So it's good to try a variety of characters. And so you can go, so your granny voice is going to have a little bit of possibly fluctuation. The idea being that if they're not, if the muscles that make the voice are a little more aged or weaker, that they might not be as clear. So you have a lot more fluctuation. So
And whatnot. And that's oh dear.
so
No.
yeah. So you can do a version of the little kid voice that quivers that ends up sounding like grandma, or maybe just a little, not quite so high. What would talk with someone near you? How would you physicalize the grandma?
I would like shake.
Lots of shaking.
Yeah. And so that with the quivery voice, right? And again, these are stereotypings, but yeah. Not all that.
Yes.
So
We did like some tea.
yeah, and that's really great. So you can have a granny voice who could be your shopkeeper. And then if you want a natural pairing, a granny with a little kid she takes care of, or a granny with a big oaf of a nephew or son or grandson, what would a big oaf voice sound like? If you're trying to make it sound less intelligent, he might speak slower.
Voice for Cusco.
You could try Cusco, you know.
Cusco is voice. I get it.
Though he's got a lot more kind of intensity to him. He's very direct. He's just dumb, right? And but an oaf might be slower talking
I would give him a
for
southern
the yeah. He has a lot more yeah.
I gotta go ask my grandma in the back. I gotta go ask my grandma in the back if I can go with you guys.
So yeah, you could do a country accent. You can just slow down the speech. Well, I guess I could go out and get you guys a horse. Granny, is that okay if I get you guys?
I would
a
yell
horse?
at you.
So slow, repetitive, intentional words can be your good kind of dumb oath. But like, so again, having this variety of characters creates a lot of options for trying it. Yes. Yeah. So that is it's like a level beyond of advanced from that. And if you notice, like part of that character's the reason you watch and the vocalization for that character is really important. Like he has the slightly disfigured or differently shaped face that creates a different sound. Like his facial structure is different, which is why you weren't here for the one earlier, but I like to think of did I already share, who here heard me talk about lizard folk and teeth and lips? Did I do that? Or was that the other workshop? Okay. So if you think, okay, well, let's do tabaxi then. What does a cat person's face look like? What are their, this is like standard human facial structure. But when we think about some characters, they have different facial structures in fantasy and science fiction. So we have some that are like lizard folk or even goblins where they have a little bit less lip and more teeth. They might have a little more saliva. But we also have like cat people. So what do you expect from the face of a cat? Yes, like that.
Well, they have lips in that one.
Yeah. So if you're an actual cat, what does your face look like? That's what you might. That's some of the side sounds.
You don't have lips, so you're like.
Or you have like really poofy lips because they have like the kind of overflapped things, right?
Yeah.
So we can just all start meowing, but then also like, do they add hisses or like purrs into their regular speech to show when they like someone or dislike someone?
Yes.
I hate him, right? He stole from me, right? And we get these kind of hiss sounds to vocalize the cat. Or
like
you're
in the
not. That's a terrible purr. That's like a creepy purr.
in the Grand Sprint, because they have like the noses up,
Yeah.
they talk like this.
About to murder someone.
They talk.
That's the context of that.
They talk,
The
they
Grinch.
talk without enough to like. They go like
Yeah. So you can think about what the anatomy and physiology might play in here. And I really need to get a bio professor to talk through some of this with us. But if you do lizards, if you think of a lizard, which I did earlier, they have very thin lips. So everybody tighten your lips. and stick your teeth out. They show lots of teeth. And I always think of Jurassic Park. I know some of you heard this already, but I think of Jurassic Park and how often like drool falls out of their mouth, right? Or in monsters in general, they've got big teeth, thin lips, and drooling everywhere. So if you've got like a scary dog person or some sort of monster, usually they've got like this tight-lipped anatomy and like the teeth are sticking out. So then, right? How do you rickroll them?
Never gonna give you.
Right? Now, if it's supposed to be like, now do the little kid voice with your lizard face. Everybody try it. They're never going to give you up with your lizard face, tight lips. Gonna give you. Right? And like it's effort to keep the saliva from falling out. Then do your little kid voice like Kaylee was doing. Right? And I don't know why. It just feels like it's like I had a lot of breathing going on. Now, what if it's your old granny? It's almost like you have dentures that are falling out. Now, what if it's the old oaf, but he's a lizard folk? Never gonna give you up. Yeah. So you kind of you explore putting your face in different positions. So bro, you can literally pan. And so we went to the market and we had toys and treats. Right. All right. So I will say we only got through a few, we barely scratched the surface. It's already 3:33. But I want some of the benefits of this, like it can help you learn other languages. I've had even graduate students who are from and pronounce in different ways. So I've had graduate Chinese students, like these are people who are working on their doctorates and they were in my writing class and we're talking about pronunciation. But they had friends from different parts of China. So some of them spoke Cantonese and some of them spoke Mandarin, and they were hearing each other differently. So one of them were talking and their accent came out with very minimal lip movement and a lot of like echo from the back because they weren't using a lot of the tip of the tongue or the lips. And so they were asking me like what they could do to kind of shift their accent. And so we talked about increasing the amount, like over exaggerating the lip movement and then over exaggerating the way they use the tongue, right? And pulling that sound forward instead of having it echo because tonal languages tend to echo from the back. And it's almost like for people who aren't used to that, it can sound like they're talking from a cave. What do you got?
I know this is like slightly off topic, but would you be able to like explain the major differences between German and Russian accent?
I can try.
Because whenever
It's
I
not
do German
super off
accent,
topic, it's
it
just-
kind of turns into Russian.
So sometimes we use, sometimes we have in our heads categorizations. We categorize languages in families, but in Germanic and Slavic can sound the same. So Germanic versus Slavic languages, like they have some similar features because they tend to be slightly more guttural. So if I'm doing German, I like to use, do what? So what's funny is it's actually got a lot more parallel to English in because of Anglo-Saxon heritage. But I like to use Ronald Reagan's line "Ich bin ein Berliner" because he said it meaning I'm a Berliner when he was talking in like 1989 about the wall being brought down, but it literally means I'm a jelly donut. And so he said in this meaningful, magnanimous, like connective moment, he said, "And I'm a jelly donut," and he meant to say, "And I'm one of you. I'm as if I were a Berliner," and he got the grammar wrong. But I use that "Ich bin ein Berliner" to get into my German accent, and it's hard not to have it switch into Russian. So I have to be careful. I have to think through it because I haven't done German in a while. But I have to kind of key in. If it's a voice you haven't used in a while, it can help to roll through phrases you know how they're pronounced. Yeah.
And I haven't done German.
Yeah.
Not German, I haven't done
Ich
Russian.
habe eine. Yeah. Bitte. Bitte. And so if I'm going to talk, so for me, I learned German and French at the same time. Yeah. So yeah, and you get a little more guttural, but also a little like you get a little more of both parts of the face, the back and the front. And so I think sometimes I end up with like a Gru-like accent, which isn't great. But
Somebody told me
yeah.
my Russian sounds like Gru and
Yeah.
my Scottish sounds like Shrek.
I sweep the moon, I grab the moon, I sit on the toilet. Like that's my Gru.
I think German is both tonally and pronunciation-wise more in the back of your throat, while Russian, it's tonally in the back of your throat, but pronunciation-wise, you're using your tongue a lot more.
Yeah. So you get, so like, if you're wanting, you know, if you go watch, you can go watch some of the Black Widow movie and kind of draw on some of what they do, or think Yelena, you know, to kind of get that accent. Or you could just go, comrade,
Pronounce it farther.
right? Let's get you closer to it, say comrade, right? Because that's like a classic thing in Western history. We use this comrade because that's how we characterize communists.
Well,
I know it is actually like, it's like because we have been enculturated into KGB Russian personifications, which is always this, which is usually this deeper voice. So to do others, it's we have to think about input. So when we were talking about linguistics and acquisition, we have to think what's the input we have for that language and that accent, because if we learn them at the same time as another language, it can be hard to distinguish. Or if we only know it from the movies, and so all of our British accents are like Bridgerton instead of how people speak in Britain these days, or like we have to over exaggerate a Cockney accent, it's like, well, it becomes really like when people go, hello, governor, right? It's like, it's obnoxious and it's not really how they speak. But if you go, maybe, I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But was he Mary Poppins? I
The
can't
new
remember.
one.
So I think the way of describing, I have to practice it a little more, but it's a reasonable question because sometimes they do overlap. I think we get a little more over enunciation with Russian than German. German can, and most of the Germans I've met in person tend to be very soft spoken. And they'll emphasize, what's interesting about the language in German is sometimes the verb is the last thing. So you have to listen really carefully for the last word. Whereas in English, this is where we get into the syntax. The subject and verb are usually front loaded, and then whatever happens afterward is extra. But in German, you have to listen for the phrases, and then the verb is there. So you have to rehear everything they
So it's
say.
like we say he jumped over the bridge, but they would be like jumped over the bridge.
It would be
Or
he over the
bridge.
bridge jumped.
He
Right.
over the
And so you have to listen like he over the bridge. What happened over the bridge with him? He jumped, right? So we have to listen differently. But they tend to be slightly more soft spoken.
It's also, in ASL, they do something like that where you, if you're like looking for somebody in a shirt, they'll describe everything about the shirt and then they'll say the color. So you have to wait because you're like, okay, there's 8 long sleeve shirts with crew necks. Okay. Oh, the green one. Okay.
Trying to make sure. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these, but yeah, there was so much. It's a whole discipline. Like people specialize in any one of these things and become doctors in any one of these things for individual languages. In case you were wondering how cool language is, like we're scratching the surface. We're like doing the crash course here. But be thinking as you're thinking about your character, be thinking about how do they form words? How do they put words together with different sounds? What is the context or the structure of their sentences? Because if you switch, like I said with German, if you take that syntax and make the verb at the end for your character every time, it changes how people interact with your character. And so you can use syntax shifts. You can play with pronouns and those traditional grammar rules by switching like an I for a me, or just having, instead of using he, she, they, he, she, him, her, you can just say they or it. What happens if your character always calls people it and never uses the gendered pronouns or even the plural they or them, right? What happens if they're talking about a shopkeeper and says, yes, and it told me, right? That suddenly becomes a character identifying feature. So that's syntax, changing the structure based on grammar, traditional grammar structure. Semantics is the web of meaning, and pragmatics is practical use in context. So you can think about all these different ways that might show up in a game, and think through how it might change your character and how that might bleed into the impact on the world. Kaylee, what do you have?
So is pragmatics like when you say like that person's hot, is pragmatics like in context it can either mean attractive or temperature.
Or they've been in a sweat lodge.
Yeah.
That's more semantics because it's about context.
Okay.
It's pragmatics is the practical use of language separate from any rules. So
Oh.
pragmatics is, did it work? Did it function? And if we're talking about, so it'd be like, ain't is discouraged in some contexts, or saying the phrase, in class I'll say the phrase like, you don't know who you is. And it's like, well, is that good
wrong.
grammar, bad grammar? It's wrong for some people, but it makes you connect with others. Like that was very common where I grew up because I grew up in the ghetto. And so saying you don't know who you is it that they need to say, is it an identity crisis? What do they need to change about that? Or is it that they don't know who the you is that's being referred to in some other sentence? Like when we say don't use second person pronouns. In a game and talking about character, pragmatics is going to be if your characters mishear something and transform the world by mishearing, like they didn't understand how you pronounce someone's name. So like instead of saying Baba Yaga, they shifted or started calling her Gamiga, and suddenly that's the name of that character.
Or Baby Yoda.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, so Baby Yoda is not Yoda, but people did that. So pragmatics is the use so in a game, it would show up as the players did something. Maybe you didn't plan, but you end up like, they've said it now enough that it's become canon, if that makes sense. So pragmatics is practical use, even if it isn't technically correct. Okay. What other questions does this make you think about before we're completely out of time? Okay.
Tangential. How do you deal with laughing?
How do you do it? Well, I try and get my face into the structure for that voice, and then I laugh.
Elmo says.
He doesn't laugh like that.
So, if you set your face to that voice, cool, right? And so it comes out, right? So Granny? Missy, oh, you're so sweet. Right? And so when you get your voice into the character, you're no longer like having to force it because your face is already in the structure. Yeah. So get your face into the structure for that voice with a catchphrase or whatever you do for that, and then your laugh will feel authentic in that
You
voice.
can also choose a quirk like snorting, but don't change your leg.
Especially if you have allergies. Oh gosh. That was to mess with you. Okay. Other questions about linguistics?
Nope.
If you want the full crash course, which I'm sure you do, I do have like a 5-video linguistics content that I will give my students. I don't think I gave your class, you lucked out. But English 101, I will give my students the crash course in linguistics. And so that's like a 5-video set on the YouTube channel. It doesn't talk about gaming, it talks about real life and language learning and that kind of thing. So yes, those are there. The next workshop for us is technically in Bradshaw 129. So I'm gonna have to move everything over there, but that's gonna be running a game, game mastering, DMing, and kind of facilitating fun. And yes, apparently I thought this was a good idea to just stack these workshops back to back to back.
Apparently.
How tired are you right now?
If you needed to sign in, I'm actually doing okay. I was sleepy before I came. If you need to sign in, make sure and do that. If you didn't get one of the cards, feel free. You're always welcome to email me or send me questions. And I think that is on my email and text for students is, my cell phone is on my YouTube channel. So you guys can send me questions if something comes up. Or if you're like, I have this kind of character, how would you voice it? And I'll send you an audio clip if you really want me to. You heard that, internet. Things I promise sometimes.
You're gonna get a bunch of random text messages of people asking you to do.
I've only had one person randomly like text me because they found my number on YouTube and they're like, I don't know how to do this in APA format and I'm a graduate student trying to solve this. I'm like, I don't know you, but here's what I would do in that case.
That's actually
Yeah.
really nice.
So I have my
I would
email and
never
my
do
phone
that in
number
a
on my
billion
YouTube channel. Why what?
What?
Why do I do that? Why would
Do you have
I
your
do
social
that?
security?
I'm a
Back with your credit
professional
card?
knowledge disseminator. And so it's not if I'm gonna take the time and I have the expertise and I can help somebody, they don't have to be enrolled in my class.
I guess you don't get problems with like too many random people just spamming
Oh, we're
that.
gonna sign this just. in
I
case.
wouldn't be
You get to
against
do
it. It'd be a good problem to have. It means that the knowledge that I spent 15 years of my life growing in and continue to grow in, maybe 20, like that knowledge is actually useful. for more people. So the more I can connect with people and support them, like that's one of the reasons why I still publish even as a community college professor, where it's not really valued the same way. And I still present at conferences. It's because like I've spent time figuring something out that I think will help people. So yeah, so that's the law. All right, we got to pack up and move over to the other room. Thank you everyone for showing up. If you're moving over there, I will see you in Bradshaw 129, which is over by the computer lab.
I'll be on it.
Why would you do that?